Hey everyone, welcome to This Explainer. Have you ever actually stopped and wondered what happens to the human psyche when you're literally trapped at the edge of the world? Like staring down a ticking clock and forced to make absolutely impossible choices. We always kind of think of survival as this purely physical thing, right? But honestly, the true test? It's almost always psychological. Today, we're unpacking the intensely atmospheric world of Charlotte McConaghy's novel, Wild Dark Shore. We're talking about a gripping eco-fiction thriller that just completely pushes the boundaries of isolation, family secrets, and resilience. It really forces us to ask, what would you do, and honestly, who would you become if you were pushed to the absolute brink?
But hey, real quick before we get completely swept away into the stormy seas of this story, you are absolutely going to want to experience this chilling, visceral atmosphere for yourself. Seriously, you can listen to the full audiobook right now using the link down in the description. You gotta check that out. Because hearing the relentless crash of the ocean and those tense, quiet moments between the characters, it just adds this whole other dimension to the experience. We're about to dive into some seriously deep waters here. So go ahead and bookmark that link and get ready.
Okay, let's dive right into this. Charlotte McConaghy's work is super well known for sitting squarely at this thrilling intersection of climate fiction and psychological mystery. She pulls off what critics often call the impossible blend, which, let me tell you, is notoriously hard to do in the literary world. I mean, think about it for a second. A literary character study requires this slow, deep introspection, right? It asks you to linger on the emotional nuances. But a psychological thriller? That demands rapid pacing, relentless hooks, and a plot that just drags you forward at breakneck speed. Usually, when an author tries to mash these two together, one of them ends up suffering. Either the characters feel kind of flat to serve the plot, or the plot just drags. But McConaghy, she totally nails this incredibly tough balancing act. You get profound psychological depth without ever sacrificing that gripping, edge-of-your-seat momentum. It's wild.
So let's set the stage, because the setting here is practically a main character itself. Picture this. We are on a remote, freezing island that is perilously close to the Antarctic. It's actually home to the world's largest seed bank. So the stakes, they're unimaginably high, both ecologically and, on a deeply human level. Because of aggressively rising sea levels, there's been this mass exodus. Every single researcher and scientist who used to live on the island, gone. Now the only people left are the island's caretaker, Dominic Salt, and his 3 kids. Just imagine the biting wind, the deafening sound of that relentless ocean, and the overwhelming psychological weight of being the literal last people on Earth guarding humanity's agricultural future. And to make it worse, the clock is ticking, loudly. They only have 6 agonizingly isolated weeks until they get picked up and forced to leave their home forever. I mean, you can practically feel the damp cold settling right into your bones.
And into this high-pressure, totally isolated pressure cooker, the inciting incident just drops. A mysterious woman completely washes up on their desolate shores. So obviously, the massive question driving the whole narrative becomes, who exactly is Rowan? Dominic and the kids manage to nurse her back to health, but oh man, that is exactly when things start to get intensely interesting. Just think about what it means to invite a total stranger into a closed-off, paranoid, and fragile little ecosystem like this. The second she arrives, the meticulously kept secrets of the island begin to spill out. Dominic is hiding things to protect his family. The kids are keeping their own dark secrets. And Rowan? Oh, she is for sure harboring dangerous truths about why she really washed up on Shearwater in the first place. The tension just instantly skyrockets. To actually unpack all these secrets, the author uses this brilliant structural trick. She splits the narrative into distinct voices. Whenever we're in Rowan's perspective, it's always delivered in this highly intimate first-person point of view. We are right there inside her head, which kind of makes us feel completely complicit in her lies and hidden agendas. But when the novel shifts to Dominic's kids, it pulls way back into a third-person point of view. And let me tell you, this shifting lens works incredibly well on a psychological level. While Rowan's chapters make us her co-conspirators, the kids' third-person chapters make us feel like these helpless observers just watching their innocence slowly unravel. It builds this agonizing suspense by carefully controlling what we know and when we know it. We're literally watching the mystery unfold from both the inside out and the outside in.
And all of that structure feeds directly into the novel's absolutely incredible pacing. There was this one review that just perfectly captured the reading experience. They said you read a beautifully written chapter and then, boom, there's a twist. Read another chapter, boom, another twist. This is where that impossible blend we talked about earlier truly shines. The author gives you this lovely, evocative prose with real poetry to its heart, but she balances that elegance with relentless reveals that just hit you like a massive wave crashing against the shore. Honestly, for anyone out there trying to figure out how to tell a compelling story, this is a literal masterclass in rhythm. By alternating between quiet reflection and sudden shock, she makes sure you never, ever get comfortable. You are absolutely hooked, constantly piecing the psychological puzzle together while the ground just shifts right out from under you.
Now, what's really fascinating here is the dynamic of the Salt family. This is a family that has clearly been through the absolute ringer together on this isolated rock. In a lot of ways, each member represents a totally different coping mechanism for profound trauma. You've got Dominic, the fraught, burdened father desperately trying to maintain control. The oldest daughter is fiercely independent. She's a strong swimmer who physically distances herself from the pain by literally living in the lighthouse. Then the youngest child is just desperately craving a mother figure, a role Rowan kind of steps into, representing that basic human need for comfort. And then, well, there's the middle child. He's this totally seed-obsessed reader who basically memorizes the island's research. And humorously enough, as one reviewer noted in our source material, they completely blanked on his name. Was it Raf? Was it Ola? Who knows? Honestly, we'll just embrace the mystery. But regardless of his name, his intense focus on how seeds travel and grow adds this incredibly enriching thematic layer. It perfectly shows how we use obsession to just distract ourselves from an impending, terrifying reality.
Another absolutely massive achievement of Wild Dark Shore is how it handles its central theme. It uses the climate crisis as a backdrop, not a lecture. We've all been there, right? You consume some media about environmental collapse and you feel like you're being lectured to. And what's the natural human response to a lecture? You tune out. Now, the whole premise here absolutely hinges on rising sea levels and ecological disaster. But what's so masterful is that the novel never ever shoves it down your throat. It never loses sight of the human drama, the characters, or those intimate family dynamics. The environmental collapse is just seamlessly woven in as this persistent, looming threat in the background. It's incredibly effective because it takes this massive, unimaginable global crisis and grounds it into something deeply personal and immediate. It makes you care about the macro by making you fall completely in love with the micro.
Okay, but look, no piece of art is completely flawless, right? There is one major, spoiler-light issue that briefly breaks the immersive spell of the book, and that is the shoehorned romance. Without giving away too much of the plot, a romantic relationship sparks between Dominic and Rowan that readers found rapid, cheesy, and just entirely unbelievable. One person even described it as naff, saying it felt like it belonged in a totally different, much cheaper genre. And honestly, it brings up a super interesting point about storytelling. Why do publishers or authors feel the need to inject a romance plotline where it just naturally doesn't belong? A lot of times it comes from a lack of trust in the core narrative tension. In a novel that is otherwise so smart and sharply written, this forced love arc just feels totally rushed. It's actually a great lesson for writers out there. If you have a compelling mystery and deep psychological drama, trust those elements. Trust them to carry the story. You really don't need a manufactured romance to keep the audience invested.
But let's put that flaw into perspective for a second. 100. Despite that romantic misstep, and despite wishing some of the kids' backstories were fleshed out just a tiny bit more, reviewers were left wanting an extra 100 pages. That is the true mark of a fantastic read. Think about the last time you finished a story and felt a genuine sense of loss. You become so deeply invested in spending time with this complex family on this rainy, vividly realized island that you genuinely mourn the ending. You literally just do not want to leave the atmosphere the author has meticulously crafted. When a creator can make you endure freezing isolation, paranoia, and existential dread and still leave you begging for more time in that world, yeah, you know they've achieved something truly special. So, which brings us to our final thought. Will you brave the dark shore? Wild Dark Shore successfully nails a nearly impossible blend, delivering gorgeous literary fiction completely wrapped up in a heart-pounding psychological thriller. It's this profound look at isolation, human resilience, and the sheer lengths we will go to protect the things we love. It really leaves you questioning your own limits. Like, if you were stranded at the edge of the world with the clock running out, what secrets would you keep to survive? Who would you become when the rest of society washes away? Are you ready to uncover exactly what is buried on the shores of Shearwater?
As we wrap up this journey into the cold and the unknown, I want to leave you with one vital reminder. You can dive right into this unforgettable story yourself by grabbing the full audiobook via the link in the description. Be sure to click that link so you can fully immerse yourself in the compelling mystery of Rowan and the Salt family. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today for this explainer. Keep seeking out great stories, keep asking the hard questions, and I'll see you next time as we visually unpack our next fascinating topic.